Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Page number 239. So we have just started discussing the different types of rupa that arises. We've talked about the essential rupas, which are categorized by the elements, and then the rupas that categorically are named upadaya rupa, that is derived or byproducts of that composition or byproducts of the composition of the elements, right? The essential elements, right? So we are going to continue along what we have gone through. So before we do continue, do any one of you have any questions over what we have already discussed in your own personal study? No? Okay, let us continue. Page number 239. Life faculty. Material phenomenon of the heart, Hade Rupa. On the heart base has the characteristic of being the material support for the mind element and the mind consciousness element. Its function is to uphold them. It is manifested as the carrying of these elements.
Excuse Bhante.
Yes, Dev.
Are you reading from number 6, the life faculty?
No, I'm reading from
at
number
the bottom of 2.
I'm reading from number 5. We'll go through number 5 and come into number 6.
All right. Oh, I was getting confused. Okay.
Yeah, we are reading.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. Its function is to uphold them, right? It is manifested as the carrying of these elements. It is to be found in dependence on the blood inside the heart and is assisted by the 4 great essentials and maintained by the life faculty, right? Maintained by the life faculty. Now, when we speak about the Hade Rupa, this Hade Rupa specifically speaks about the supportive base for the Hade Bhakti, right? Supportive base for what we call the Hade Bhakti, right? Now, this is usually referred to within the doctrine as the base of mind, or the seat of mind, not base of mind, the seat of mind. The seat of mind. Now, what is to be understood, or what we know about the seat of mind, is as it is mentioned in the text that we have just read through, it associates, or the mind arises associating or in dependence of that physical phenomenon known as the Hade Rupa, right? Known as the Hade Rupa. Now, this is not to say that the Hade Rupa is specifically, or this is not this is not to say that the Hade Rupa is the required unique scope of the mind, if you understand what I mean. It is not. It arises in dependence of that physical phenomena, but it is not the required material phenomena which contributes to no, let me put it in a clearer way. The Hadaya Rupa can change. This change, now for example, a heart transplant, right? Now the heart transplant is essentially not going to change the person, right? It doesn't set the Rupa, is just a base or a supporting factor that the mind arises dependent on, but it doesn't set or really define how the mind operates. It should not be taken in a way that the Hade Vaktu defines the mind. It is only a physical base for which is known as a seat of mind, right? Which is known as a seat of mind. And now we speak about now sensations. A dead body does not feel sensations. A dead body does not see, smell, hear, taste, or feel. Now this connection between the mind and the body, that base is the Hadeva. Do you understand? Right? Is that clear? Right? If one would ask how or at what point or what is that element which connects, we could say the mind and the body, we could say that the mind arises in dependence of this unique phenomenon of the body. Remember that within the sutras, we've gone through this within the Karma section, where we say Nanatta Kaya, Nanatta Sanya, which means Nanatta is Sinhalin Vividakara, right? The variety of perception and the variety of body. Now, the variety of body is that we all look different. Right? The variety of perception is that we have the capability of thinking uniquely in comparison to one another. Right? The way that we think is different. Now, when it comes to, for example, again, if I may recall, certain aspects of the different other planes, now within the Avicii or the burning hells, what happens is that the pain that is endured does not allow for Nanatta Sanya, variety of perception, right? It does not allow for variety of perception. Each and every person within the hellish realms will think, within specific hellish realms, will think in a specific or through a specific scope. Within Avicii, that scope is pain and dukkha, or the experience of dukkha. That is the only perception that is possible, right? That is the only perception that is possible. Now, one might imagine as a human, if we try to, it is a little bit difficult to compare a human mind to the mind of one who is born within Avicii. Just think about this. You stub your toe on the edge of a bed or the wall or a door, right? Or let's say, the callous mistake of having a door slammed on your fingers, right? Now you have or you experience this acute pain which arises, right? Now, for a person who is who doesn't meditate, who is not aware, he or she would react instantaneously to this pain. For a person who meditates, might not react, right? But might see the pain. That happens, no, isn't it? Right? But within Avicii, the pain is so severe that that possibility is not possible in that plane. Right? That possibility is not possible within that plane. So likewise, we must always remember when we speak about the Hade Rupa, it does not denote the way the mind reacts and acts or way the mind cognizes. It is only a physical phenomena which the mind operates independence of, right? Independence of. Is that understood? Right? Now, because of, now when we move further on in the chapter, what we would I'm sorry. Life faculty, Jivita Indriya, is the material counterpart of the...
Bhante, can I ask a question?
Yes,
on Hadevastu.
yes.
Some priests, they explain Hadevastu in the blood inside the heart.
Yeah.
What do you think about that one? That actually it is not exactly the heart, but it's initiated especially in the blood, which is in the heart. So not outside, blood outside the heart, blood inside the heart.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of justification for that?
Well, what is mentioned now, what it mentions is that the Hade Rupa, the life faculty, its arising is based upon a thick blood based within the heart, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
based within the heart. It is clearly outside the heart. It is inside the heart.
Yeah.
And now this is a phenomenon that we do not fully understand. We do not fully understand. And however, what we know through the commentaries is that it is based upon a very thick blood, thick in consistency compared to the rest of the blood of the body within the heart. That is all that has been explained in the commentaries, Damsari, you know. But I have not read any commentary which says that it is based outside of the heart, for sure. It's mentioned that within the heart there are chambers, and within those chambers there is a place within the heart which the seat of mind operates based upon a very thick sort of blood within the heart, right? Now, then we would have to ask the doctors, you know, is there biologically what is within the heart? Now we know the 4 chambers, right? Within the heart, is there any place other than these 4 chambers, or maybe it is within the 4 chambers itself? But it is important to note that because this is the mind, right? And of course, blood will not be stagnant, isn't it? Right? That it might be based upon one of the 4 chambers where the mind would sort of focus on. This is particular because also in Hindu studies, right? Hindu studies of meditation, a similar thing is mentioned. A similar thing is mentioned, and also the electromagnetic waves of the brain, the heart, and the root chakra, which is just below your navel, right? Which radiates an immense amount of energy. The Buddha speaks about this navel heart-mind connection as well, where the Buddha does so to speak about how it is important to eat a healthy diet for the maintaining of a clear mind, right? This again is spoken of in Hinduism as well, when it comes to the Vedic traditions, right? When it comes to the Vedic traditions, with regards to how this power of these electromagnetic waves which radiate through the brain, heart, and the the root chakra, which is right below your navel, is not clearly understood as yet by modern science, but I think we will get there. Right. And it is very interesting. I was thinking of inviting this gentleman called Keith Olker, who is actually one of Daizan Roshi's main teachers in the Zen Center. And he is an expert on Qigong. And in Qigong, something that they do is they use this power of the root chakra, and they are able to transfer that power into motions and movements. Right, motions and movements. There was, you know, I went to one of Keith's because Keith was also working with ministry at one point, and you know, I volunteered myself, and you know, Keith is quite an old man, right? And you know, so I volunteered myself for one of these sort of Qigong exercises, and he told me to keep my fist on his palm, you know, not moving anything. And he just, so radiating that root chakra, he sort of diverted that energy to his sort of his palm, right? And he just did this, right? He just literally did this. I turned, toppled, and fell on the floor. Right, he did give me fair warning. You know, he did give me fair warning, and you know, I volunteered myself just for the fun of it. And he did this, right? And I turned and I toppled on the floor, right? And you know, that was, and what he mentioned was this root chakra, the heart, has even more power, right? The heart has even more power, but they work with this power that they radiate through this navel, the root chakra, right? So I think it is quite interesting, right? But according to the commentary, that is what it said. The base of the mind is based upon this thick blood found within the heart, right? Found within the heart. Now,
Bhante, mind element and mind conscious element, right? Mind element is the five adverting and the two receiving.
Yes, and mano vinyana dhatu.
And the other one is mind conscious element, the same three, and the 10 sense conscious. Is that right?
Mano dhatu and mano vinyana dhatu. Now, mano dhatu is, when we say mano dhatu, it is referring to the element, right? The element that gives rise or that works with the mind. So when we say mano dhatu, it means that it carries its own characteristic, right? That it carries its own characteristic. For example, chakku vinyana dhatu. Chakku vinyana dhatu means that the chakku, now we know chakku is different from sota. Because why? It has its own intrinsic quality, characteristic, right? So when we talk about mano dhatu would refer to panchadhara bhajana and sampatichana, the two sampatichana, right?
Yeah.
Mano vinyana dhatu refers to everything else, except
It's the same thing. It's the same thing and the 10 sense conscious, isn't it? Same three plus the 10 sense conscious.
No, mano dhatu is panchadhara bhajana and sampatichana. Mano vinyana dhatu is the 89 minus the 2 in mano dhatu, right? And minus chakku sota gahana jivha kaya. So we have 76 mano vinyana dhatu.
Yeah, 76 it comes to, yeah.
76 vinyana dhatu, that is minus panchadhara bhajana and 2 sampatichana, right? And minus the consciousnesses which operate specifically with the 5 senses.
Yeah.
When you deduct all of that, you get 76 mano vinyana dhatu.
Yeah.
Is that clear? Right? This is to categorically mention the difference between those consciousnesses which has a common characteristic and those consciousnesses which has categorically different characteristics, right? Categorically different characteristics. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Right? Now, Chakku Vinyana Dhatu is not the same as, or Chakku Vinyana has a specific thing that it does. It operates with the eye, Chakku Pasada. No other consciousness does this process, right? Sota, the same thing, right? So they have a specific role that it plays. It is to differentiate that process that division is made. Okay, is that clear, Noeli?
Yeah, thank you, Bhante.
Hari. Hari. Is the material, okay, Jivita faculty, I'm sorry, life faculty, Jivita Indriya, is the material counterpart of the mental life faculty, right? Mental life faculty, the material counterpart of the mental life faculty. One of the 7 universal Chetasikas, right? One of the 7 universal Chetasikas, life or vitality, is called a faculty because it has a dominating influence over its adjuncts. The life faculty has the characteristic of maintaining the coexistent kinds of matter, maintaining the coexistent kinds of matter at the moment of their presence, right? At the moment of their presence. Its function is to make them occur. It is manifested as the establishment of their presence. Its proximate cause is the 4 great essentials that are to be maintained. I think life faculty, when we speak about life faculty, it has a deep resonance, of course, with the 4 Mahabhutas, specifically the Tejo Dhatu, the fire element, right? Specifically the Tejo Dhatu, the fire element, right? Any questions on that? Any questions on that? This speaks about when a certain phenomena arises, this phenomena needs to be maintained in order for its function to continue. When the mind ceases at the point of death, there starts decay. That decay starts. Now the body doesn't just disappear. No? The body decays. That decaying of the body is because of the grossness within this plane. In certain higher realms and planes, in certain higher realms and certain higher realms, in certain higher realms, what happens is the body just disappears because the body is not as gross as what we have here in the human plane. So within the human plane, it goes through a process of decay. That process of decay happens because of the fact that the life faculty is now no more in operation to maintain the body through the support of the mind. Through the support of the mind. So what would then happen is that the body would decay at the loss of the life faculty. Right? Now, there are certain occurrences which we find as anomalies where it is mentioned of the maintaining of the body after death. Those sort of anomalies that we know of within Buddhism are a result of determination-based powers. Adhisthana bala. Determination-based powers of the mind before death. Of the mind before death. Right? Before death. Now, any questions?
Bhante, earlier chapter we learned about mental life faculty as one of the seven universal, one of the seven universal factors, mental factors. And this life faculty is different, isn't it? This is the physical life faculty.
Yes. Yes. Now, the physical, okay. The mental life faculty and the physical life faculty. The mental life faculty duty remains to be the maintenance of the mind for, again, to perform and complete the function that was intended by its arising. The physical life faculty is the maintenance of the body for its intended purpose. Now, example, aharaja rupa, nutrition. When nutrition is put into the body, we know, even according to science, that the nutrition would remain and it has an intended purpose, isn't it? Right? Now, that maintenance is done by the material life faculty. The maintenance of those rupas so that it can perform, it has the time, the ability to perform its intended purpose. Or else the body, or really in this example, the nutrition, would just decay, or it would not be able to continue within the processes. When we speak about that, now, if you take, let's say, there are certain foods which need to be, let's take a piece of salmon, for example, just something that comes into my mind. It has to be kept at a certain temperature, isn't it? Now, you never eat. I mean, I don't know if you buy, and you shouldn't buy, sushi from, I think Sainsbury's, Costco, these places have these sushi boxes you might have seen. You should never eat that, right? The reason why that is because salmon or fish, when it is not maintaining its proper temperature, it has these worms that start to grow quite fast. So there has been this woman in the UK actually who's been eating all this sushi from the supermarkets, and they've done this scan on the body, and they've found so much of worms all around the body, and this was because of the sushi that she has been eating. So much of sushi, she loves sushi. Overzealous over sushi. Right? So now that is a good example to take here, where the temperature needs to be maintained. That is why the life faculty resonates deeply with the tejo element. Because without that tejo element, as we spoke, remember when we read through the tejo section or the essential section, it mentioned this, that it has its role and function remains to be that maintenance. Remember, the maintenance of that specific and respective rupa, right? That is what is spoken of here. This life faculty allows that moderation of temperature, moderation of elements, allowing it to, if we might say, not go bad before its purpose has been done and dusted. Right? That is what that is what this speaks about specifically. If we would take another example, for example, it is spoken of now leprosy, right? Now, illnesses such as this, it is mentioned within the Tipitaka, right? You might remember once into the Buddha's bowl fell a finger. While the Dayaka was serving, his finger fell into the bowl. Right? And the Buddha, without making a scene about it, he just puts it onto a side, right? And continues his meal, right? Continues its meal. Probably because it mentions, you know, human flesh is one of those fleshes that we cannot eat. I'm not sure whether if it was allowed, whether the Buddha would eat it. But usually Buddhas and all Buddhas before them do not eat human flesh. Right? And now specifically, illnesses such as leprosy is spoken of within a karmic context, not that it only happens because of karma, but it is spoken of within a karmic context where it is said the karma affects the tejo dhatu, the tejo dhatu maneuvering now, making the flesh dissolve or rot or whatever you would call it. I don't know the proper word to call it, right? That process of rotting or decay that starts within a specific part of the body now being influenced by the karma. How does karma influence it? Karma influences the tejo dhatu, which in return influences the maintenance of that specific part. In a similar manner, for example, people who have good sight, in a karmic context, this is not to say that this only happens because of karma. It is spoken of when the karma to see now finishes, now the person loses sight. How does the person now lose sight? The physical base now stops working because the karma affects the tejo dhatu again, discontinuing the process of maintenance, which would have otherwise been a process that continued. Do you understand? Right? This tejo dhatu is not to say that it burns. Now, when we take the element of fire, we would say, okay, it burns, or, you know, that it sort of damaged it. No, it is to say that the intrinsic material phenomena found or which founded within that pasada rupa now changes, making the pasada rupa inactive, or the word would be defected or defective, if that is, yeah, maybe defective. Do you understand? That is how the commentaries explain, because or else the problem is this. Let me tell you the problem as well. The question where this question arises is, now we know when a karma arises, one karma gives result. But if we know, if we take the kalapas, there are many kalapas which make or form this person, this body, right? So then does the kalapa individually attack and deform, does the karma arise so many times that it deforms the kalapas individually and separately? The commentaries say, no, this is not possible, because the karma is one, right? Let's say you, just for the sake of an example, you harm another person's eyes. That is one karma that you did. You didn't do it over and over and over and over again. You did it once. That karmic energy, for it to now be able to give result, the only way that it can is to disrupt the process of the I, as an example, right? That process is disrupted through the manipulation of the Tejo Dhatu, as explained within the commentary. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. All right. Let us continue. Any other questions? Okay. Edible food, 7. Kambalikara Ahara has a characteristic of nutritive essence, Oja. That is the nutritional substance contained in gross edible food. Its function is to sustain the physical body. It is manifested as a fortifying of the body. Fortifying, lovely word that they have used. Its proximate cause is gross edible food, which is the base of nutritive essence, which is the base of nutritive essence, right? Nutritive essence. Now, this oja refers to the nutrients, the nourishment, which is found within the food that we consume, right? Found within the food that we consume. This is the same oja which would then affect the quality of the oja goes to affect the mind as well, right? The quality of the oja goes to affect the mind as well, right? I think I mentioned to you some time ago, you know, in the meditation center, something that we often do is enemas. We do enemas very often. We do colonic irrigation very often. We place actually a lot of attention within what is happening and what we consume, right? Sometimes it is so it is actually quite interesting how, when you're meditating and when your environment is quite, you know, because in the monastery you won't have sort of static changes every day. You know? I mean, you would have the environment is such that you don't have static changes, so that it is easy to maintain a certain state of mind, right? Certain state of mind. So as meditators, we would really notice very particularly, we will notice changes in the way the mind works or the mind manifests itself, right? You find yourself having mood swings sometimes. You find yourself sometimes grumpy. You find yourself sometimes, you know, going through different sort of state, you know, independence of sometimes the bowels, right? The intestines. And this is something that we see now the West talking about a lot as well, isn't it? Right? Now, a lot of celebrities and, you know, people who have the luxury of doing all these treatments, you know, people would get their sort of, you know, colonic irrigations, diets, and all of these things done regularly on a regular basis, noting the effects that it can bring about for a person's mental health. Something that is suggested within mental health circles is to come off fast food, sugary foods, fatty foods, oily foods, in order that it brings about, in hopes that it brings about, and it does bring about, a more calmer state of mind, right? And this is very much not a new science founded in the West. This is very much a science which was founded and can be found in ancient doctrines, even far ancient than Buddhism itself, right? Far ancient than Buddhism itself, from the time of the Vedas, right? And it is also mentioned that when a achieves higher states of mind, the person does not need a lot of food, because even a little food is able to maintain the person's body and mind, mental energy, right? This, through modern science, we find through studies done by Professor John Kabat-Zinn and many others around the world, including Professor Mark Williams from the Oxford Center of Mindfulness. We have 30 odd years of research now prove that even with, for example, medicines that one would eat to treat terminal illnesses work far more better when the person meditates. The absorption rate increases statically when a person now gets into a mindfulness practice, and this is a proven thing, right? This might also be the way the Buddha, having gone through the processes of self-mortification for so many years, the Buddha did not die by eating one seed of rice. He was able to maintain himself. Of course, he was rather weak, but still he did not die. Right? This maybe can be put to sort of in connection to this rate of absorption that the person has through, which comes about through those high states of mind as well. Right? High states of mind as well. People often ask monks, how can you sort of not eat, especially at night, isn't it? Because at night you really enjoy your food, possibly in front of some YouTube or Netflix or a movie. It is far more enjoyable to eat when the sun is down for some reason. And actually the thing is, through personal experience, I can say you don't even think about it, right? And that is possibly because of the mind. And the mind, of course, the trained mind, right? The meditative mind. You really start focusing almost naturally on sheer need rather than want, right? And it almost happens in, naturally with the calmness and the lack of restlessness in the mind itself, right? So that is edible food, oja, right? Oja. Now, these 18 kinds of material phenomena, the 18 material phenomena just enumerated are grouped together as matter possessing intrinsic nature, Sabhava Rupa, right? Sabhava Rupa, right, is somewhat like Sabhava or Swabhava Lakhana, right? Meaning it has its own intrinsic nature that it performs. Rupas are like that, you see. Every rupa, every little bit has its own purpose and function, which allows a phenomena, an animate object, to be what it is and to do the things that it can do. Because each type has a distinct objective nature, such as hardness in the case of the earth element, etc. As matter possessing real characteristics, Salakkana Rupa, because they are marked by the three general characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and non-self, right? Again, as matter possessing, we'll read from the top. The 18 material phenomena just enumerated are grouped together as matter possessing intrinsic nature, because each type has a distinct objective nature, such as hardness in the case of the earth element. As matter possessing real characteristics, because they are marked by the three general characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. As concretely produced matter, because they are directly produced by conditions such as karma, etc. As material matter, because they possess matter's essential characteristic of undergoing deformation, right? Deformation. and as matter to be comprehended by insight, because they are to be made the objects of insight contemplation by way of three characteristics, right? By way of three characteristics. Now that is the definition, or the reason, not the definition, the reasons for which these categorizations are made with regards to the 28 rupas, right? Is that understood? Shall we go through that again? We'll go through that again. The 18 material phenomena just enumerated are grouped together. The 18 that have been enumerated are grouped together as material matter possessing intrinsic nature, because each type has a distinct objective nature, such as hardness in the case of the earth element. That is clear. Oja is oja, right? Likewise, as matter possessing real characteristics, the real characteristics being impermanent, suffering, and non-self, right? Impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Concretely produce matter because they are produced by conditions such as karma. Kammaja rupa, aharaja rupa, chittada rupa, and utuja rupa. Because of factors such as karma, right? As material matter, because they go through deformation, which we spoke about in the first, when we 2 classes ago, and even the last class, which defines why a rupa is called a rupa, because it goes through deformation, and as matter to be comprehended by insight, because they are to be made the objects of insight contemplation. Right? Now let's go in detail to what it is. Non-concretely produced matter. Non-concretely produced matter. Yes. 8.
Ante,
Yes.
that paragraph referred to the previous category.
Yeah.
18 rupas, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because only 18 rupas is considered, or you use 18 rupas for your contemplation as object of, not all 28.
No.
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Okay.
It is only the 8 that have now already been discussed. I'm sorry.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Discussed. Otukota.
Sorry, Bhante. Out of these 18, the 5 objective material phenomena, they have left out tangibility. Is that because it's only got 3 elements, excluding water?
Yes.
That's the reason?
That is the reason only. Because yes, and we went through the reason for that, because water can only be experienced by the other elements, right? Because the water can only be experienced by the other elements, right? So there is no repeat there, right? All right. So then 8, limiting material phenomenon, right? Limiting material phenomenon. The element of space. 9, intimating material phenomenon, bodily intimation and vocal intimation. 10, mutable material phenomenon, material lightness, malleability, buildiness, and 2 forms of intimation. 11, characteristics of material phenomenon, material production, continuity, decay, and impermanence. Here, by production and continuity, are meant the material phenomenon of birth. Right? Let's go into what that means. Right? Guide to para 4. concretely produced matter. These types of matter in groups of 8 are designated non-concretely produced matter, anishpanna rupa, because they do not arise directly from the 4 main causes of matter, but exist as modalities or attributes of concretely produced matter. Thus, they are not included among the ultimate realities. Again, the types of matter in groups 8 to 11 are designated non-concretely produced matter because they do not arise directly from the 4 main causes of matter, but exist as modalities or attributes of concretely produced matter. Thus, they are not included among the ultimate realities. Right? Is that understood? Right? It will become evidently more clear as we go through it, right? Because it will become more clear when we go through it, right? The first, the space element, akasa dhatu, space. As understood in the Abhidhamma, is not bare geometric extension, but the void region that delimits and separates objects and groups of material phenomena, enabling them to be perceived as distinct. The space element has the characteristic of delimiting matter. Its function is to display the boundaries of matter. It is manifested as the confines of matter, or as a state of gaps and apertures. Its proximate cause is the matter delimiters. Right? What do you understand by that? Any idea? Yes, Damsiri. Please go. No problem.
It actually, it's separating individual rupas and keep them intact.
Yes.
And prevent them merging or something like that. Keep them separate always. So that space in between 2 or 3 or many rupas is occupied by this space. So that's a interspace between number of matter.
Yes.
Or component of matter.
Yes.
Right. So can say that you can even take example. Now, if you take a glass of pebbles, right, and you see actually air in between pebbles, right? So that's the space in this particular case we are talking about. Because if you consider individual pebbles as components of matter, so the space in between is the space we talk about. But as I think they classify slightly different akasa dhatu, because when we do the immaterial concentration, that is also considered as voidness, right? That is different from here what we are talking about, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This, yeah. Yes. So, I mean, I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Can I say something, Bhante?
Yes, yes.
I was thinking whether it is like the space between atoms within the material, or molecules. You always have a bit of space in between them. I was thinking like that because Lord Buddha had talked about harpers and things in some sermons, isn't it? So I was thinking whether it's referring to that.
Yes, it is. That is also so, right? This speaks about now. I mean, if we take the composition of the blood, the red blood cells and the white blood cells, like you said, Lakshman, Lucky, the atoms, molecules, and particles. The allowance for it to do what it does and have the effect that it does have is dependent upon its own individuality and function. That is respected by the fact of space being in between them.
Yes.
Allowing for the process to then go through, or each individual phenomenon to play out what it would be there for, right? What it would be there for. This is absolutely imperative for material structures, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is absolutely imperative. I think Lakshman is also an engineer.
Yeah.
Right? So you guys,
Yeah.
So this is absolutely imperative for a structure to maintain itself.
Yeah.
Right? That is what is spoken of by what we refer to as a space element. Right? Now remember that the space element is a nature. Right? The space element is a nature, right, which should be understood to exist all around us and should not be confused by the meditative attainment or how the nimitta is then sort of spread is the word, huh? The nimitta is spread, isn't it? Right? That should not be confused by this space that we are referring to. Right? With this space that we are referring to. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, that is clear.
Yeah.
Right. Intimating material phenomena, vinyati rupa. Vinyati intimation is that by means of which one communicates one's ideas, feelings, and attitudes to another. There are two means of intimation, bodily and vocal. The former is a special modification in the consciousness originated air element, which causes the body to move in ways that reveal one's intentions. Right? To reveal one's intentions. This movement of my mouth, fueled by the intentions that I carry in my mind, is the dominance of the air element. Right? This movement, now you're all looking at my mouth, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right. So this is the air element in any movement that we have. This movement to carry something, to hold something, to move, to walk, all of that is the dominance of the air element. Right? Is the dominance of the air element. The former is a special modification in the consciousness originated air element, which causes the body to move in ways that reveals one's intentions. The latter is a special modification in which the consciousness originated earth element, which issues in speech by which one reveals one's intentions. Right? Which reveals one's intentions. Now, what does that mean? Can someone explain that to me in the way? Let's read the paragraph and finish it first, okay? Both have the function of displaying intention. They are manifested respectively as a cause of bodily movement and of verbal expression. The proximate causes are, respectively, the air element and the earth element, born of consciousness.
Ante,
Yeah.
I'll explain. Now, when you give, when you talk, what you're doing is you're pushing stream of air through your vocal cord, and you manipulate that stream so that you create a sound of your intention, right? And from your mouth, what you get is words and phrases and sentences. But in reality, what you are doing is you are putting a stream of air through your vocal cord.
Yeah.
So that's the intimation. That's the exact no air element. You are finding your through the vocal air element. Yes, Bhante?
Okay. Any other?
No, says it's earth element, but I don't believe that it's the air element actually.
Sometimes.
There's a bit of a family conflict.
Okay. Yes, Devika.
Bhante, sometimes some people, okay, you're trying to say what's in you. Sometimes your voice may not come out, but by looking at one's mouth, you can determine what that person is trying to do as well, isn't it? Sometimes that happens. You can read between, by if you concentrate and if you know the language, so you can also determine what that person is trying to say.
Yes. Well, yes.
There's something called lip reading.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the technique they use sometime actually, lip reading. So they identify the movements of the lip and then identify the words that's coming out. Or predict the words that coming out. Yeah.
Okay. Sujata, your mic is unmuted. Do you have anything to say?
No, Bhante.
Okay.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay. So here, the manipulation of the okay. In intimation, it speaks about bodily and vocal. The body is spoken of in relation to the air element, right? The vocals are spoken of in regards to the earth element, right? With regards to the earth element. Why is it not the air element there as well? Right? Why is it not the air element there as well? Remember that this is a conversation of dominance, right? The voice without air, you cannot speak, right? You need, it is through, or you have to have that air, which then is manipulated to then sort of put out, to sort of voice your opinions. The manipulation process, however, is done through the feel of touch, which is hardness, earth, right? That is why here it is not within vocal intimation, it is not the element of air, but the element of hardness, right? But the element of hardness. How do we voice or take over the different accents and some of we are all bilingual, right? Some of us know more than 2 languages. We twist and turn, and we are familiar with the different accents and the ways to speak our mind, knowing the way to manipulate the sense of touch within this area, which allows for these different sounds to now be manifested. That is directly spoken because it is a field of touch. That is why we then associate the earth element with the voice rather than the air element. Right? Rather than the air element, because it is a field of touch. Now, we might not notice, but if a person speaks one language, they might not notice it as clearly, but us who speak 2 languages or sometimes 3 or 4, we understand. Now, when you speak Sinhala, there are a lot of twists of our tongue in comparison to when we would speak English, right? Now that is, you get used to that twist or, twirling and all of that, which happens inside the mouth through that field of touch, right? Through that field of touch. That touch is what then manipulates the air to form the voice, the words that we want to form. That is why Dhamma say this is earth and not air. Because this is a question of dominance. Right? Because this is a question of dominance. If we go back to the primary functions or the primary way the elements function, it functions through codependence, but certain elements at respective times have dominance over other elements, right? It is through this dance of elements that we are able to truly sort of wield the body and words that we would display or communicate with, right? That is why then it is classed as earth. Does that make sense then? Because of the field of
Bhante, yeah.
Bhante,
Yeah.
a little talk, something. It's not relevant to this topic, but relevant to the word. That is lip movement. A funny thing happened to me the other day while I was walking somewhere on Hyde Park, I think. I saw somebody coming forward, a famous person. I told my other friend, isn't that Boris Johnson? And behold, he came forward. I said, yes, I am Boris Johnson. How are you? He gave me his hand. I shook hands with him. And this is a lip movement I want to talk about. I don't know if you like it.
Why did you touch his hand, Sujata?
Yes, I was very happy, really. I had to talk
I
about
hope
it.
you washed it afterwards.
I didn't for a while. I kept it like that. Yes. And that's the true story, Bhante.
Cherishing the touch of Boris, huh?
Actually, he's a handsome man. I really had to look at him. He's really good looking.
Okay,
Sorry,
Sujata.
Bhante. If I disturb
crush as well now. Okay.
Bhante, sorry
Yeah.
if I disturb the momentum of the spirit talk, but
Yeah.
I had to override it anyway.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. So Sujata has a cute crush on Boris.
Yes. For a moment, I was really flabbergasted. I was happy.
Lovely. Okay, moving on. Now, mutable material. Did we? Yes. Is that clear then? Vinyati Rupa. Right. Now, do you understand? Right. If we might just come back to the definition of non-concretely produced matter. These types of matter in groups 8 to 11 are designated non-concretely produced matter because they do not arise directly from the four main causes of matter, but exist as modalities or attributes of concretely produced matter. Is that clear now? Akasa dhatu. It doesn't arise from the Mahabhutas, however, acts as a nature which is present within in its whole operation. Similar, Vinyati Rupa. Verbal intimation and bodily intimation doesn't effectively directly arise from Mahabhuta, but the way that it is manipulated and the way that it works gives rise to this specific function which is performed. Is that clear? Right? Okay. Mutable material phenomena. Vikara Rupa. Vikara Rupa. Okay. This category comprises special modes or manifestations of concretely produced matter. It includes the two types of intimation and three other material phenomena: lightness, malleability, and wilderness. Among these, lightness, lahuta, has the characteristic of non-sluggishness. Its function, now remember, these words, most of these words are words that we've also gone through Chitta Chaitasika, specifically Chaitasika. Do not confuse them, right? Do not confuse them. Characteristic of non-sluggishness. Its function is to dispel heaviness in matter. It is manifested as light transformability. Its proximate cause is light matter. Its proximate cause is light matter, right? Has a characteristic of non-sluggishness. Its function is to dispel heaviness in matter. It's manifested as light transformability. Its proximal cause is light matter. Malleability, mudita, has a characteristic of non-rigidity. Its function is to dispel rigidity in matter. It is manifested as non-opposition to any kind of action. Its proximate cause is malleable matter. Wilderness has a characteristic of wilderness that is favorable to bodily action. Its function is to dispel unwilderness. It is manifested as non-weakness. Its proximate cause is wildy matter, right? Now, this intrinsic nature, these natures speaks about the natures present within matter and within the formations of the different matter that we have discussed, and the ability within these matters to be manipulated in different ways. Without these three, the manipulation of this matter would be impossible. Would be impossible. Now, for example, sorry. Now, for example, let us say when you're sleeping, right? When you're sleeping and when you've gone into deep sleep, sometimes it is, not sometimes, when you're in deep sleep, you know, you can't just pick up the hand might be heavier than when you are just doing something around the house, or when you are, studying or something like that. I don't know, whatever it is. Right? Now, that malleability which is present within the time that you're doing your daily chores and activities of day is what allows you to then do whatever it is that you want to do, right? When the Rupa hardens, now let us say that you have injured your hand and your hand is swollen, right? You can't move it, isn't it? Right? You can't move it. Now the elements have been, again, to quote the word that has been used. What's the word which was in Rupatiti Rupa? Deposed. The word which was used was
deformed.
Now the Rupa, having been deformed by the injury, caused by the injury, the earth element has hardened, lessening the ability for air to operate. Right? Air to operate. When the elements are in balance, in the way, balance not to mean that it is equal, but balanced in the way that is required, then these features, Lahuta, Mudita, and Kamanyata, can operate the way that it does. To move and manipulate, cause or by reason of volition. Right? Is that clear? Without these three, what would happen? The elements would be stagnant. The elements would be like a block which cannot be moved or manipulated. It is in this that we can then act in the way that we want to act and communicate through the bodies. Yes? Is that clear? Right? Let us look at, do we have time? 2 minutes. Okay. The first one is lightness. Right? Lightness is important when it comes to the need of displaying actions or performing actions. If our bodies were as hard and heavy as it is when we are sleeping, then it would be rather uncomfortable to now perform and act in the ways that is required to communicate, right? Mudita, malleability, the non-rigidity, right? If your hand is swollen, now there is rigidness where you cannot now move it. When the hand is not swollen, there is malleability, which allows the hand to now be malleable, right? That is that nature, that is this wildness, has a characteristic of wildness that is favorable to bodily action. Its function is to dispel unwildness, right? It is manifested as non-weakness. What is the definition of wildness? Let us ask Google. The quality or state of being easily handled, right? The quality or state of being easily handled, according to the Collins Dictionary, right? Easily handled, right? Now, again, that is then which helps not only in communication, but even in the processes of the body, within the body, to do what it does, right? Now, for example, when you eat, right? Now it must come out, right? If it was hard, the intestines or the digestive system did not have the ability of these qualities, we would not have that smooth flow of bodily operations. Right? In the same way, the opening and closing of the chambers of the heart, right? The pumping of the muscles, of the heart muscle, right? The contractions and the way that the muscles would operate. Here, in every attribute, now, when we speak about these natures, however, we are not speaking about the muscles. We are speaking about the quality of the muscles, or quality found within the muscles, within each and every part of material existence found within the body, right? Within the body. Is that understood? Right? Good. We are going to stop there then. Okay? We'll continue the rest next week. Yes. We'll continue next week. All right then. Good night. All right. I will see you all.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Good night, Bhante.
Bye.
Ita dan din eකට අපි
Night, Teruvan Saranai.
Bye.